What do cows burping, using fossil fuels, and decomposition in landfills have in common? Well, they were the top 3 largest sources of man-made methane emissions in 2018. Methane is a gas that looks like this. Wait, you can't see it. Scratch that. Methane is a gas that is invisible, and it is 28 to 36 times more effective at trapping heat in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. So basically, it packs a proportionally high punch in the global warming area. But not to worry, these 3 heavy hitters aren't problems that we don't know how to face. In fact, for one of these areas, we have a simple solution that you can incorporate into your daily life with little fuss. Composting. I'm serious. You may think that composting is only for gardeners, or that it's messy and takes a lot of time, but that's not true. Composting can just be another way to sort your trash, like recycling. But we'll talk more about how to compost quickly and easily at home in a second. First, how in the world does composting reduce methane emissions? Let's start with some background on compost. Compost is a soil-like material made from decomposed organic matter, or things that used to be alive, like food scraps, grass clippings, or paper. Composting, instead of throwing away organic matter, reduces methane made from landfills. It may seem that throwing away organic matter is fine because it'll decompose, right? Well, yes, in landfills it does decompose, but since it's buried under all the other trash, it can't get the oxygen it needs to decompose regularly. This means it has to go through anaerobic decomposition, which releases a lot of methane. It's estimated that a pound of organic matter in a landfill can create about 3.8 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, landfills are aware of how much methane they produce, and so some convert this greenhouse gas into electricity. Methane is a main component of natural gas, so it's easily burned to use for power, and the result of this burning is much better for the environment than methane is on its own. However, officials still state that reducing the amount of organic material in landfills by composting is a better solution overall. On a side note, remember how we said that cows, quote-unquote, burping creates a lot of methane? Well, cow burps are turned into electricity pretty frequently too. So, there's a chance that the device you're watching this on has been powered by cow burps. You're welcome. So, anyways, how does composting help? Well, if you let organic matter that you're going to throw away compost, it'll have the oxygen it needs to break down without releasing a bunch of methane. In fact, it's estimated by public interest nonprofit USPRIG that in 2015, if all food waste and yard trimmings had been composted, it would have reduced the equivalent of 33 million cars of methane. That's a lot of cars. Not to mention, using compost instead of fertilizer reduces the harmful impacts of fertilizer pollution. When human-made inorganic fertilizers get into the water, the nutrients that make them work in the garden will make algae grow really quickly, which is called an algae bloom. However, when all the algae die, it uses up a lot of oxygen, which leaves very little oxygen for the other organisms in the water and creates a dead zone, killing local wildlife. Okay, so we get it. Composting is good for the environment. But let's talk action. If you were to try and compost, what would go in it? Typically, compost needs a combination of green and brown material. I don't mean like literally green or brown. Green materials are things that used to be living and rot quickly, like grass clippings and food scraps. This could also include eggshells, coffee grounds, or old flower arrangements that have wilted. Brown material includes drier items like paper and dead leaves. This could also mean cardboard, egg cartons, dryer lint, twigs. The best compost comes from a balance of these 2 ingredients. So if you're lacking in a certain area, you may need to go out of your way to put a different color in your compost. Some things you may not want in your at-home composting are meat and dairy products, because they smell bad and might attract pests. It's not impossible to compost these items, it just might require some extra attention or research. Okay, so how does composting work? Once you've decided that you're going to do it, composting is quick and easy. One easy way to compost is with a compost tumbler. Here's how it works. When you need to throw away your organic material, like after eating or cooking, separate it into a separate container. When the travel bin is filled up, it will travel to your compost tumbler. Compost needs to be turned or mixed every so often. Compost tumblers will have some kind of handle you can turn to mix the compost, which eliminates the need to turn it manually with a shovel. Tumblers are also good if you live in an apartment and have some balcony room or access to a roof. Unlike compost bins, they don't need to sit on top of any soil. Once you get your tumbler pretty full, you want to stop filling it up for 2 to 3 weeks to let it all compost well. It may take longer in the winter because cold temperatures slow decomposition. If your tumbler has 2 chambers, you can use the second area in the meantime. If not, you could store some food scraps in compostable bags in the freezer. Paper bags work fine. They won't decompose in the freezer, it's much too cold. We'll talk about what to do with your finished compost a little later in the video. Another method of composting is using a good old-fashioned compost bin. You'll want to put the bin somewhere in your yard with access to the ground. It works the same way as a tumbler, except it won't turn for you. You want to move it around with a shovel or a rake every so often for a quicker composting. When you need compost, scrape off the top layer to get the soil-like material underneath. Another option is vermicomposting. This uses less space and may be a better option if you live in an apartment with little room. Vermicomposting means the container you're composting in will have worms to help the process along. No turning is needed for this method, as the worms will do all that dirty work for you. You'll need a container with ventilation at the top and bottom, and another container to catch the worm tea, or the liquid that'll leach out of your compost. You will fill the container about a third full with moist paper scraps or shredded paper, and then introduce your worms. Red wrigglers are the best composters. Then, just empty your food scraps in whenever you need to. To collect the compost, you can feed the worms on one side of the container for a while so they all move there, and then gather from the area they left. Okay, that's quite a few options, but it doesn't have to be hard, I promise. All you need to do is choose one, make sure to gather the appropriate containers, and start composting. Okay, so now what do we do with the compost? Well, compost is perfect for a garden, flower beds, or even indoor plants. Compost is nutrient-rich and retains water very well. If you use compost instead of chemical-packed fertilizers, you'll also be reducing fertilizer pollution, as mentioned earlier. But maybe you don't have a use for the compost on your own. If your city or town has a compost collection service, this could also be a valuable option. If not, it might be worthwhile to see if there are private collection services that can pick up your compost for you. Many small businesses offer this service. Finally, you could see if you can donate your compost to local community gardens. In conclusion, once you've started, composting is quick and easy and diverts waste from landfills that create massive amounts of methane. If you're looking for more resources to learn about the benefits of composting, both for the environment and for gardening, there will be several links in the description below. Thank you for making it to the end of the video.